Hey, hello, and welcome to the next edition of Digital Trust Talks. I'm Ted Shorter, CTO here at Keyfactor. Eric?
Hi, I'm Eric Mizell. I'm the field CTO here at Keyfactor, and if you're joining us live, feel free to send in comments or questions along the way. But I think we're going to talk a little bit about how Black Hat is from our lens, right, Ted? Not
Yep.
necessarily a show debrief, but what we saw and what we heard,
Yeah,
right?
if you came here looking for a review of the best Black Hat sessions and talks and so forth, you're going to be sorely disappointed because neither Eric nor myself actually were able to attend any of those, despite having badges that let us do so. Just because I think we spent all of our time meeting with customers and partners and chatting with folks in the booth and doing media and all that sort of thing. So we can certainly share our experience from last week.
Yeah, for sure. I think first and foremost, I think it goes without saying the show just seems to get bigger and bigger, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've never seen so many booths with so many gimmicks and giveaways and the like, but it's impressive because there's so much activity and security. It's every day there's something new. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the official attendance count was, but it feels to me like it was about somewhere between a third and a half of RSA. And I think in a very real sense is sort of becoming a closer and closer second to RSA, the conference in terms of its importance in the security show landscape. I think it's become a must attend event, at least in our boat.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting to me. I mean, we talked a lot about post quantum, post quantum cryptography, 47-day search, right? Those are things that fit our world, and would love to get Ted sort of your thoughts. I'll give you some of mine in a minute, but what you heard and saw and at the show and kind of like the vibe because sometimes
Yeah,
I think too many people get focused on AI, which sure is there, right? And how do we secure AI? But there's also a lot of other stuff out there.
yeah, AI is definitely everywhere. I actually, if you asked me for an over under on percentage of booths that would have AI mentioned in some fashion, I would have thought close to 40%. But it was a lot less than that. It was maybe 1 in 5, 1 in 7, something like that. There was a lot of AI powered. Saw a lot of
Hmm.
that. And then I think there's other like and I don't think, by the way, I don't think this is a bad thing, but things that agentic AI, for example, if you think about the security controls that are required to secure that, a lot of those things are things that we've already been doing with other machine identities and other security controls, defense in depth, et cetera. So, to the extent that you know almost every vendor on the floor has something that probably, in addition to what it's been doing for securing machines and people and workloads and whatever else, the various sectors of security, uh, apply. They certainly apply to AI as well, and so there were some that will, sort of tag their, put an AI stamp on the things they've been doing. And again, I don't think that's wrong. Right? It's you start with the controls that you have. And use those to secure AI. So I think there was quite a bit of that too, especially it was hard. I went through Startup Row, and I actually like that they labeled it that way. At RSA, it's kind of it's on the map, but it doesn't. They don't have a sign that says
Hmm.
Startup Row. I just thought that was cool,
Do you
but
see any cool companies? I mean, did anything stand out in Startup Pro? I wish I'd have
not a
seen that.
ton. There was a lot of AI there.
Yeah,
A few of them that I talked to, I
it's a
had
way to get money today, right now. If you put AI
sure.
in your
Yeah, some of them I
anything
had
you do.
trouble figuring out exactly what they did or what they did differently from larger competitors on the floor. Um, but yeah, it was definitely an AI heavy conference. That was probably of the terms that people were using. That was probably the top, the top most used term. But it wasn't everywhere, and I kind of expect it to be everywhere. So
Yeah. And it's interesting. I didn't see a lot about post quantum, and I was at JISEC over in Dubai, which was heavy post quantum. I
interesting.
mean, there were dozens and dozens of booths and companies, and the talk was very, very focused on PQC. But I didn't feel that here. But yet, when I spoke with folks at our booth and went to different meetings with different customers and media, that was one of the biggest talk tracks was post-quantum and planning. What are people doing? Where are they going? Is it hybrid? Is it composite? But I think what really shined the most to me was cryptographic inventory.
Yeah.
And it's ironic because, we just acquired the two new companies and two new products. But aside from that, that's what a lot of people are talking about. Just in general, I heard a lot of it.
Yeah.
Did you see a lot of that?
I did. I did. I think it's also a lot of the conversation around cryptographic inventories, starts with quantum, or at least people think about, if I'm going to do a quantum transition, I need to really look at what cryptography I have and where it's used. And of course, there are also now compliance frameworks like DORA and PCI that are asking people to get inventories and explain what they're used for and what algorithms and so forth and why. But I think what we've also seen is that as people have started to shine a light on probably the one aspect of security that everyone has sort of taken for granted for the last 20 years, being cryptography, that there's a lot of messy stuff that needs cleaned up before you even start talking about transitioning to quantum, right? There's a lot of weak keys and improper usage of things, and SHA-1, MD5, et cetera, and all those things are relatively easily breakable now, right?
I got to share a story with you. I think it's super interesting. I'll leave names out, of course. I met with this guy who's been in cryptography.
If you're listening, by the way, whoever this is,
he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But he's been in the business for over 30 years, and he was worried. His biggest worry was 47-day certs, which makes sense, right? Because it's coming fast. And he mentioned to me, he's like, well, we have it heavy in our embedded systems. And I was like, well, do those need to be a public cert? Can't they be a private cert? And he goes, yeah, our CA wouldn't scale. And, I was like, so we made a choice, right, to go with a public cert because we could get them at a faster interval without failure versus our private CA. And for those of you who are familiar with private CAs, you already know the product I'm talking about. I don't have to say it, right? It's the only one that people had for years. But I was like, wow, I never thought of it from that perspective. And it goes back to what you're saying with bad practices or just doing what we had to do at the time. Because you think about where people started getting into PKI, there was really only one answer for a while.
Well, the answer that everyone had for free and
exactly,
but was worth every penny. Yeah.
Right. Exactly right. And then you have to scale it. And you start getting into embedded systems. You're talking hundreds of thousands of certs, and now you can't scale. So now I move to a public CA, and you pay more for that, of course. But now I go to a 47-day cert. So now the problem's doubled because I have a 47-day cert problem, but I'm also using the wrong type of cert. And so now I got to change my PKI as well. So I thought that was super interesting.
It is interesting. I think, there are certainly lots of other cases where people are using public certificates, maybe where they didn't need to in the past. I think the 47-day certificate thing may push more separation between, okay, these are the things that have to be CAB form compliant and worthy of and set up with public trust versus things that are still very high assurance, but not subject to the CAB form rules and so forth. Because, obviously, those rules are set up for things that make sense for public trust, which is different from enterprise trust or, shared organizational trust, partnership trust, and that sort of thing. So, that is really interesting. There are other cases I know that have happened, things, sometimes certs used in banking applications, that sort of thing, did not need to be publicly trusted, but just sort of were because they, high assurance was needed. And that also can, cause problems from there as well. That is super interesting. I think the other conversation that we've had a lot, both at Black Hat with customers, but also just anywhere else. So almost every customer conversation that I have includes something about automation, right? And and it's the 47-day certificates piece as a backdrop to that of like, how do I get this stuff automated? At a minimum, the stuff that's publicly trusted, how do I get that automated? But I think that's something that always comes up. And by the way, if you're going to make a transition to quantum, you're going to need automation as well, because by the time you actually get to deploy quantum resistant PKI, you're not going to have very long. And having automation is going to make that way easier.
It feels like to me this 47-day start thinking is coming at an ideal time. As you can think about it, so many people are been getting by with manual work, hodgepodge piecemeal things and whatnot, and now there's some pressure to make that change because the manual hodgepodge isn't going to get it done when you're talking about doing it monthly. So there's a huge focus on automation, which is good. And then to your point, right around the corner is going to be this post-quantum cryptography challenge. And if you've already sorted out a lot of your automation, it's going to make that much easier. And it's funny, I did a talk there. I did a vendor talk at Black Hat. And part of that talk, we talk a lot about standardization too. Because I think it's interesting if you think about how every company is a software company now. So 20 years ago, we weren't, right? And so now we are. And so people have hundreds and some companies have thousands of apps. And this group puts, I'm just going to use Java because it's simple, or it's actually much more diverse, I should say, than like Windows, right? If I'm doing IIS, it always is in the local store. But in a Java landscape, you have Java key stores, you have PEM files, you have P11, you have all these different flavors. But you don't think anyone could use the same directory structure? No. Some people got to put them in var libs, someone's got to user libs, and you've got all these different locations.
Different file extensions, especially trust stores. Trust stores often have very different file extensions.
So you think about the lack of standardization, trying to get that under some sort of management and repeatability that's you can just kind of make easy for everyone to consume doesn't really exist. And so I think that's part of what I talk about is maybe start thinking about some of these things. When you go into automation is let's standardize on certain apps or certain locations. Maybe it's a pull model, some are a push model. Maybe I'm using standard protocols or I'm using infrastructure as code or automation tools, but you got to find some standards, make it repeatable, because if not, it just gets worse.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I'm curious, I don't know if you had a chance to walk the floor at all or saw any booth giveaways, anything like that. Was there anything that stood out as far as like the best? But Keyfactor excluded, of course.
Right.
As far as we were actually playing. Speaking of AI, if you've not seen the that's what I call digital trust.
That's right.
We were playing AI generated rock music, country music, rap, a bunch of other things, all themed around machine identities and cryptography and PKI and so forth. But I don't know if there was any like booth giveaway or theme that caught your eye.
There was one they were emulating a baseball park. I don't know the company, but I don't know if you saw that, but they were all dressed in uniforms and they had the whole baseball.
We don't want to give them free marketing, even if you remember the name, right?
I don't remember the name, unfortunately. I don't know, but I thought that was pretty interesting. But it was a lot of gimmicks for sure. But that one stood out. I don't know. How about you? Do you see anything else?
There was like a retro IT showcase thing that just had like a bunch of old stuff. There was somebody that set up a booth that looked like a 1980s style living room.
I didn't see that.
Which I thought was creative. There's the standard stuff that you see in places, but I did give one advice on Startup Row. Actually, that there was a company that was giving out Rubik's cubes with their name on it, which is always a good giveaway. Keyfactor's done that in the past as well. One of the things I shared was you get more people to stop at your booth if you mix one of the cubes up.
Oh yeah, because someone wants to solve it.
Because anybody who thinks they can solve it or wants to show you they can solve it or whatever will stop. So you get more conversations that way. So I was able to pass that nugget along to somebody on Startup Row.
That's hilarious. Well, hey, we're coming up on time. Any final thoughts?
No, I don't know. Like you said, I think AI is probably dominating the conversation in a lot of cases, and rightly so. Securing AI is going to be a big deal. The standards around AI are still very immature and not, as far as we can tell, not ready for prime time. There's a lot of shared keys and things that are not really suitable for enterprise use. But that will come. Securing AI is super important. Something we're paying a lot of attention to. But things like quantum, and not even necessarily because of Q-Day, but because some compliance framework is going to wind up making you do it, is something that other people need to be paying attention to as well. I think there's a certain set of customers in certain verticals like government and finance and teleco and stuff like that are paying a lot of attention to it, and but a lot of other folks are not yet. So one takeaway is just being, don't let one bright burning fire distract you from other potential things that are smoldering right around the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I think the thing that stood out the most at the conference and the feedback is just having a cryptographic inventory. I don't think there's there hasn't been any real great tools out there, but now there are.
Yeah.
And of course, self-serving, we have one of them. But just being able to have a visibility into what's in my source code, what's on the wire, what's my website, what protocols am I supporting, what hash algorithms, and to be able to see that live is huge. And I think we got a ton of buzz at the booth for that.
Yep.
And all the talks, the few talks that I spoke, and then customers I spoke with, that was like one of their top priorities. So definitely people should keep that in mind.
Yep, absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks everybody for listening in. Hope you got some interesting nuggets out of that, even if maybe it wasn't what you might have been expecting to learn about. But always great talking to you, Eric. So
hey, it was good talking to you as well. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yep. Bye.